Hello, podcast world, fellow horticulturists, lovers of plants, gardeners, family, and friends. Welcome to Shrubby Buddies, the podcast, friends with woodies for garden goodies. I'm host Matt Guthrie.
And I'm host Tim Fleischer. Coming at you from Central Ohio, Zone 6B. We're just a couple of public horticulturists and certified arborists with experience in education, landscape design, gardening, retail, and wholesale.
So grab a drink, polish your pruners, dust off that kneeling pad, and let's get down to business. Hey, Shrubby Buddies, and welcome to this week's edition of the podcast. I am host Matt Guthrie, joined with old Timmy Two Things Fleischer. Timmy, how are you?
Good. Hey, Matt.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm hanging in there. We're trying something new today.
How are you?
We're videoing, so yeah, we're giving this a whirl. Just trying it with the phone first, see how things go. And I guess if they go good, then we'll
Yeah, it's just like a little test.
A little test. Test 1, 2.
Yeah.
So what's new in your world, buddy?
Man. Let's see. I want to say happy birthday to my wonderful wife, Megan. It was yesterday.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, it's her last year in her 30s. I remember those. Do you remember the 30s?
Vaguely.
Yeah.
Vaguely. Megan, it's all downhill from here.
Yeah.
So, well, in another year, it'll be all downhill. You'll be over the hill.
Yeah, enjoy it while you last.
Yeah.
Well, don't call Dateline. Murder mystery. Enjoy it while it lasts. Oopsie daisy.
Yeah. Cool. So, happy birthday to Megan. Not a whole lot been going on in my world. Same old, just surviving. We've had a lot of rain. Let's not harp on the weather, though. Just been working. Working on stuff at Dublin.
Working hard or hardly working?
Both. Working at the greenhouse. Trying to make Bob proud in there at Dutch Milk Greenhouse. That's something
Bob's proud. You don't have to make him proud. He's already proud of you.
Yeah. So coming up on the 21st of June is the summer solstice, and Tim and I are hosting a plant trivia at Dutch Milk Greenhouse. It's a summer solstice event, and we're going to be hosting a plant trivia. It's like if you're listening and you live in Marysville and you want to come out and have some hot dogs and food and all that good stuff. It's $5 there's going to be plant bingo and plant trivia. I think it's $5. All of the money goes towards the Union County Humane Society. So
I'm very excited about this event, by the way. I like to do things like this, and one way or another, we'll figure out how that will be the podcast, whether it's just recording the trivia or whether it's recording a podcast. We haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, but one way or the other, it's all going to be wrapped into the podcast. So, anything else you want to add?
I got nothing.
Stigma anther pollen style. What's a bloomin' crocodile?
Except for this.
Yeah, that seemed kind of quiet, didn't
What's
it?
in bloom?
What's in bloom? So, what's in bloom, Timmy? Give us the rundown, my friend.
So as the new week started, I was like, man, there's not a lot of new things. This list is going to really be shrinking. But the list is actually pretty robust. The perennials have dropped off quite a bit, I've noticed. There was such a big boom of spring blooming perennials. And now on this list, there's a lot of shrubs.
Well, there actually, you know what? There's a couple things that we did miss. So I'm going to let you go through this, and then I'll tag them on there.
Okay,
so.
Cool. So mock orange is blooming, Philadelphus, which is just a big sprawling shrub, kind of an old-fashioned plant, but wonderful scent to the blooms. Deutzia scabra, which is a species of Deutzia called rough-leafed Deutzia, is in full bloom, and it's another big sprawling shrub. I noticed some of the spireas are blooming, the ones with the pink flowers and the gold foliage and the red foliage, and those are really pretty right now. Catalpa trees are blooming. And they just started a few days ago, but when they bloom, they just start blooming.
Oh, yeah.
Another tree with a really lovely scent. Big tree, big blooms, can't miss them. The large leaf climbing clematis vines.
Yeah.
You often see them. Did I say large leaf? Large flowered. Big flowers like this, and purples and pinks and whites. Yeah, those are blooming. Seems like that's one of those plants you don't notice, but then you start driving around a neighborhood and like a lot of people have them just like growing up their downspout.
Oh, yeah. And mailboxes and all of that good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Smoke bush, which is a cool shrub that we haven't talked a lot about on this podcast, but I particularly like the ones with the purple leaves and like the big puffy reddish purple plumes of blooms that look like smoke emerging from the tips of the branches. Tips.
Yep.
Itea, which is a nice little shrub. What's the common name on Itea?
Sweet spire?
Sweet spire. Sweet spire? Yeah,
Is that it?
that sounds right.
Sure. Or is that a cultivar?
No, because I'm thinking cultivars like Henry's Garnet
Okay.
in Little Henry.
Well,
no, I think Sweet Spire is
nonetheless.
right.
Okay.
Itea, yeah, nice little long tubular
Little bottle brush looking flowers. Yeah.
Calycanthus, which is a shrub that we really love. We've talked about it quite a bit. It's blooming right now, and man, it's awesome. Big deep red flowers with a lovely scent. Native, and it's actually, we got Megan a Calycanthus, me and the girls, for her birthday.
Which kind of, when you said that, I was like, really? Because she gave us a blast of shit when we were excited about the Calycanthus that was at the Ohio Botanical Symposium.
She did.
So,
And then we had lost a viburnum, and that's what she wanted to replace it with.
and she's like, yeah, and now she wants it. So who didn't know that?
So we got a nice one at a local garden center. Lavender is one of the perennials that's blooming right now. Good perennial for a dry area. Yeah. That's all I have to say about that.
And they smell good.
And they smell good.
Yeah.
Oak leaf hydrangea. What a wonderful shrub that is. That's in bloom right now. Winter Thur viburnum is in bloom right now, which is the type of viburnum that we lost to get the Calycanthus.
Wah, wah.
And I just noticed elderberry on my drive here today.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I noticed some shrubs in some
the ditch
ditches.
lines. Yep, I've seen them. I know what you're talking about.
Yep. So those are in full bloom. Great native shrub.
Yeah, so there's two perennials blooming at my house, and I don't know what is up with this, man. This is the second year in a row my butterfly weed's blooming like the first part of June.
Pretty early.
It seems so early, right? So butterfly weed should normally flower like, I would think, midsummer.
Yeah.
Right?
I've seen some in some of my gardens just starting to show color, but nothing like what I see out this window.
I've got some in full flower right now, and also I have a flower on my Echinacea pallida. So, yeah. Just two that I wanted to throw out there.
Very good.
So, yeah.
I hope that echinacea doesn't start blooming too quick, because that always signifies like the heat of summer to me, and I don't. Where is this year going?
It's going bye-bye.
Bye.
It's just trucking right along, and so are we. So, this week's topic, we've been heavy on flowers. We've talked a lot about perennials and annuals and this and that through the spring. You all know, if you've listened to the podcast, how passionate we are about trees and how much we love trees. So we wanted to do a kind of like a tree-centric episode for you, but we didn't want to just spit like tree names at you. You know, that's fine. Like, we can get up here and talk tree names all day long, but we just wanted to kind of talk tree facts with you. So some interesting things that maybe you didn't know about trees, whether that be the identification of trees or just some fun facts on the size of trees and how trees can help you in your everyday life. So
Let's jump in.
yeah, some little tree nugs coming your way.
Some nuggets indeed.
We'll just start it off with a little identification stuff. So one of the first things that you want to do when you're identifying trees, and it's an acronym that we use quite frequently, is the acronym MAD-BUCK or MAD-HORSE. And that would be MAD for the M for maple, the A for ash, the D for dogwood, and the B or the buck for buckeye, or horse for horse chestnut.
Yes, I've heard mad bucking horse.
Okay, so mad bucking horse. But these are all going to be trees that fall into the category of opposite arranged leaves on the stem. So if you're identifying trees, first thing to do is look at the arrangement of the leaves. If they're opposite each other, they're going to fall into this category: maple, ash, dogwood, or buckeye or horse chestnut. If they're alternating leaves, they're going to be something else. So
yeah, it's a great place to start if you're really wanting to get into tree identification, or just like maybe impress your friends. Maybe your friends don't care, but you can really rule out. You can really rule out a lot of options by using this acronym. And when Matt says the tree is oppositely branched or leafed, that means that if you see a leaf, we should have had a little. This is where we're going to learn that a prop wouldn't be a bad thing to have. But
so if my hands are the leaves, they're going to be like this.
And the stem coming this way. The stem is running up here.
Like this.
And the leaves are attaching to the stem just opposite one another.
And this would be alternate.
Correct.
So, yeah, we need to work on the prop thing. So,
yeah, but I mean, that was good.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, trees that fall into the mad buck category, maple, ash, dogwood, buckeye, are going to be oppositely leaved. And then anything else is going to fall into that alternate category.
Correct.
So pretty much anything else you can think of: oaks, cherries, crab apples, the list goes on, tulip trees, magnolias.
Catalpas.
Well, and the catalpa is interesting because it falls into a world category.
Let's not confuse them too much with that right now.
Catalpa's a little bit of an outlier, but the rest of them they follow this rule really nicely. Yeah. So just something to remember when you're trying to identify trees.
Like 99.9% of the time they follow that rule.
And again, we don't need to get into
We won't get into that. But 99.9% of the time they're going to follow this category. But leaves aren't always the most reliable way to identify a tree. So a lot of times you're out identifying trees when there aren't even leaves on the tree. So you're needing to look at things like the bark. You're looking at buds, things like that. Also, even when the leaves are on the trees, sometimes like willow oaks are going to not look like your traditional oak leaf. They're going to be more of a willow shaped leaf.
A lot of you can pick up a leaf and be like, oh, that's an oak leaf. It has that oak shape. There's a lot of different oak leaves, but it has that general oak shape. But a willow oak has a leaf that looks like a willow.
Yeah.
There's no lobes to it or anything like that. It's long and thin. So you need to know that some things can trick you a little bit. So
hornbeam maple.
The leaves look just like a hornbeam. So in that instance, if you see something like the helicopters or samaras like you would see on a maple tree, that's going to be confusing. So you have to take some other things into account when identifying your trees.
Yeah, absolutely.
But something like that hornbeam maple, right? Even though the leaves look like a hornbeam, and maybe that's all you have, it's going to be oppositely arranged leaves.
Correct.
Because it's going to fall into that mad buck category. So, we could go down a lot of little rabbit holes here, but it becomes fun. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, let us know. I think that like a fall or even winter episode would be fun to do for y'all. Strictly on tree identification.
Yeah.
Like winter ID. If you can ID a tree in the wintertime, like you got it made, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, maybe that's something. Let us know if that's something you want to do, and we can definitely arrange that.
Yeah,
right?
It's identifying stuff's like my jam. When people are like, "Hey, I need you to come look at this tree or this plant and see if you can figure out what it is," that's like my favorite thing. I know you like it too. It's fun.
No, yeah, it is.
It's like a little bit of a challenge because usually it's like super easy, but every once in a while you're like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah, and I love it. Like when people come into the nursery and they're like, "What do I have here?" And they almost look at you like, I know you can't figure this out. It's like, oh yeah, this is what it is, and they're like, damn, you're good, And it just kind of like,
I love it.
It's a little like,
there's not a lot of things in life I can flex on, but that's one of them.
We can flex on plant ID. So cool, yeah. So something else we wanted to hit on. We work in the public sector. We're in park settings, city park settings all day, every day. And the one thing that we notice a lot is people love to carve into the trees. So like beech trees are the biggest example of that. That smooth gray bark is just like a canvas for people to write like Ashley loves Billy, 2025 with a little heart and arrow through it. And what people don't realize is the damage that's actually doing. So underneath that thin layer of bark on a beech tree, we're going to use the beech tree as an example here, is the cambium layer. And that's kind of like the cardiovascular system for the tree. So every time you cut into the bark and you're cutting into the cambium layer, you're basically damaging the cardiovascular.
Yeah, you're cutting off a route for like water and nutrients to get up and for the tree to send things down to the roots.
Yep.
And the more you do that, you could eventually girdle the tree, and the cambium layer is completely useless, and the tree could eventually die or just be severely injured.
Yeah, and that's the problem with if you're in tune with the ash tree problems that we've had over the past 15 years with the emerald ash borer. And that's the problem with the emerald ash borer is they're essentially doing that artwork just under that outer layer of bark. So the borer boring the hole into the tree isn't the problem. It's they're laying the larva, and then the larva is just eating that cambium layer, that cardiovascular system that we're talking about.
Which is just under the bark.
Yeah, the green layer. If you were to rub your thumb on the bark and you see the green, that's the cambium layer. And these things, rather than eating up and down, they eat all over the place and all the way around. And what they do is when they connect the dots basically all the way around the tree, it's called girdling the tree. And they've completely stopped.
It's a very effective way to kill a tree, is to girdle it.
Yeah, they've completely stopped all of the tree's ability to uptake the nutrients and the water and stuff, and then also send down into the roots what it needs to. So
yeah, so one carving in a beech tree is not going to do any problems, but you do a carving, then the next passerby sees the carving, and then that shit gets out of control.
Oh yeah.
And then there's other ways to damage trees, like peeling off bark. A lot of trees have bark where it peels off real nice, and you look at it and you just want to like go yank it off. Bad idea, because you're just exposing that living layer. And the center of the tree trunk is called the heartwood, and that's essentially like retired cambium layer. Mm-hmm. It's there for structural purposes, but it's not living. It's not doing any of the work. So that the living part is there just under the bark.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man, we could do a whole episode just on tree anatomy too.
Yeah, wouldn't that be fascinating?
I mean,
we could make it good.
I think it would be fascinating, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Something else that we get asked a lot is, I don't know about you. I get asked a lot at the nursery is about staking trees. And it's like, hey, I'm planting this new tree. Should I stake it? If I do stake it, how long should I stake it for? So what I always tell people is, one, if you can get away with not staking it, by all means, don't stake the tree, okay? If you feel like you're in an area where it's going to get a lot of wind, or maybe the crown of the tree is much bigger than it should be for the root ball of the tree, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, like if it's top heavy.
If it's top heavy, yeah, and you feel like a little bit of a wind will knock the tree over, then stake it. But we don't want to leave those stakes on for any longer than a year at a time if we can help it. So the tree has to move in the wind in order to build up. It's a reactionary wood, and that creates the trunk taper that you see in the trees. And without that trunk taper, our trees are weak. So if we leave them staked for too long and they're not able to move in the wind, we don't get that trunk taper. And then when the time comes that we do unstake them, we're left with a weak tree and more chance of it, basically just snapping off at the ground level due to, it not having that reactionary wood to the wind. So,
yeah, it's kind of like the idea of how they design skyscrapers to sway in the wind. It's the same idea. And if you keep the trees staked for too long, it's not going to be equipped to deal with those winds. So, like Matt said, 1 year. So if you have to stake your tree, and a ton of experts are going to tell you have to stake every tree, and we're just telling you don't.
No, you don't have to.
I've planted a lot of trees. Between the two of us, we planted a lot of frickin' trees, and I've staked very few of them.
Thousands.
Most of them have been like containers that have just been very lightweight, like Matt said, with the top heavy, and you have to stake it. But most of them I haven't staked, and we've got a pretty darn good survival rate on our trees.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, You're going to lose one every now and again. That's just part of the gig. But generally speaking, yeah, Tim and I, unless it's necessary, we're not staking a tree. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that with you all because it's a question that I get asked a lot by people coming in the nursery that are buying trees. People probably a lot like you that are going into the nursery and buying trees, and you know how to plant them, but maybe I'm not exactly sure how to take care of it after planting it. So that's something to think about for sure. And kind of in the same breath too is I'm just going to touch on it really, really quick because it's another question that I just had this week, and that's watering trees. I sold a tree to a customer, and they wanted to know how much to water it. The lady said, should I go out and water it? Like put a gallon or two of water on the tree every day, until like this fall? And I'm like, no, like I would rather see you put the hose by the tree on a slow trickle and walk away for a half hour and just soak that area in and then forget about it like for days. This doesn't have to be like an everyday or an every other day sort of chore, I suppose, for the tree. But
Deep and infrequent.
Deep infrequent waterings are way better than like these shallow frequent waterings. So
Yeah, you really need to saturate everything, including the soil right around the tree, because if you leave that soil dry, that soil is just going to wick the water right out of your root ball of your tree. So everything needs to be wet, wet, wet.
Absolutely. Speaking of tree roots, Timmy, you got any facts for people about tree roots?
Yeah, so you get a lot of people like, oh, that tree's got a long taproot. That's not going to blah, blah, blah. Some trees have some taproot, but for the most part, the tree roots go like this. They grow out from the tree. Let's do here's the tree, Matt. Show me what the roots do.
They do this.
Yes.
Like they do like a horizontal thing.
So the majority of a tree's roots are going to be found in the top 12 to 18 inches of the soil. If you've ever seen a tree that's pulled out of the ground and fallen down like in a forest, and that mat that's connected to the roots, you could see it's not like feet or miles deep. It's more just like really big, like a big mat. Yeah. And that's where most of the roots, especially those fibrous ones that are taking up all the water, that's where they live. And they can extend out very far, even past the drip line of the tree. And drip line, when I say drip line, I mean, if you look at a tree, you look up and, the width of the leaves come out this far. Well, this isn't a good example because I'm thinking of a tree that might be 50 feet wide. But basically where that tree is going to cast shade downwards and more is the drip line.
Yeah. So I always try to explain to people is the drip line is just being like the drip line would be the outermost edges of the branches.
Yeah, and not the trunk, the branches.
The branches, it would be the drip line. So a lot of times people will buy fertilizer stakes for their trees, and it's like, place these stakes at the drip line, and they're like, well, what the hell's the drip line? It's like the outermost point of the branches is the drip line. And the reason for fertilizing at the drip line, or even further, we talked about the drip line and roots extending past that. A lot of people think the roots only go to the outermost part of the branches, right? The width of the crown, but really, they've researched this, and I mean, these tree roots can extend like 4 times the width of the crown. So if you've got a 100-foot wide tree, which most don't unless you've got a big, like, sprawling bur oak and you live out in the country, but on like a 100-foot wide tree, you're talking roots that could reach out 400 feet. So, and when we're talking about these roots that reach that far, we're not talking about these big, thick, heavy roots that are giving it the structural support that it needs for the wind and stuff. Those big, girthy roots that do the overall kind of like holding it in place are going to be closer
Matt
to the tree.
Matt loves a girthy root.
Oh, dude.
I love
me girthy
I know.
Root.
Sorry.
Unless I'm trying to dig. So, but like these roots that extend really far out are the ones that are really doing the work. They're the ones that are finding the water. They're the ones that are taking in the nutrients and all of that.
Fibrous roots.
Yeah, the fibrous roots. And these are going to be smaller roots. Fibrous roots are also the roots that you can cut into, and it's probably not going to be much of an issue because they they recover from that so
very
fast.
quickly. Yeah. And
it's-
if you think about the tree, it needs to maximize water intake because that tree needs a lot of water. So when it rains, it needs to have that very broad space to take water in from.
Yeah.
If all the roots were concentrated under the tree, the water couldn't get there because
Yeah.
the canopy of the tree is going to stop the water, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So that's why they do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so kind of a neat thing about roots. So, you know, when you're thinking about a tree and tree roots, the drip line is something. And you know, there is some truth to be told about, like, you know, the drip line, but the roots do extend way further past that. And I think that that's just like, it's just something that's been like instilled into people's brains that the roots don't go any further than that. And they actually do. So just something to keep in mind.
It's a nice little nugget.
Yeah, just a little tree nugget for you there. So, cool.
We got some more fun facts, do we?
Yeah, I've got some more fun facts. Like, these ones are actually fun. They're not like science-based facts.
Well, yeah, they're fun.
Kind of science-based facts, but more fun. So, the amazing world of trees. I'm going to read you off these facts, and these are facts that you might already know, but every time I hear them, they still blow my mind. So, Tim and I were kind of talking about, you know, about doing this tree episode, and it was like, okay, like, what are some fun facts we can give people? We could sit up here and spout, like, all of the stuff about cambium layers and tree roots and tree identification all night long, but
Extra floral nectaries.
But these are the facts that are kind of fun to hear, right? Even if you're not like a tree nerd like we are, it's still kind of fun to hear. So, tallest tree in the world is a coastal redwood in California called Hyperion, and
it's so big it has a name.
Yeah,
That's specific.
Most of these massive and old trees that we are named, but
cool.
Hyperion is the tallest tree in the world at 380 feet tall. So, like, that's a football field and then some on end. So, for reference, Big Ben, the clock tower in London, is 315 feet tall. So, we're talking about the height of Big Ben and then some.
And
the freaking tree.
Yeah, and I chose Big Ben as the reference point for this fun fact because you are a former resident.
Yeah, I lived in the UK.
So I just thought that would tickle
Not
you a
in
little
London,
bit.
but yeah.
No, but you've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there too, but
been
not
there.
because I live there.
Yeah. But but what's interesting about Hyperion is it's like, I don't know that a tree could ever grow any taller than that. I think that they actually studied Hyperion to see like if it could get any taller. I just don't think that like that the tree has enough energy to carry the water and the nutrients
Any higher
than 380 feet. I mean, maybe so under like the absolute perfect conditions, but I feel like this thing's probably in the absolute most.
So
perfect
it's not
conditions.
growing 4 feet a year at this point.
It's not growing this way, but I think it's still growing this way.
All right.
So like.
All right. And speaking of that way,
Yeah, so speaking of girth, the largest tree in the world by volume,
okay, lay it on me.
General Sherman, which is a California redwood.
Okay.
Now, still ridiculously tall at 275 feet, but 25 feet diameter at breast height. So when we talk about diameter, at breast height, that's 4.5 feet off the ground. And then the diameter would be the circumference is all the way around the diameter.
Speak for yourself. My breasts are a little lower.
Well, I mean, on average, 4.5 feet, I guess. And then the diameter would be basically the width of the cross section of the tree, and that's 25 feet diameter.
Which is nuts because I just think some of the trees we've measured around here.
Yeah.
And you know, you're talking like 5-6 feet. It's a really big tree.
Yeah, I mean,
With the diameter, and you're talking like 5-6 times that.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think about like a two-car garage is what, 12 or 15 feet wide? Something like that, probably.
So twice that width.
Twice the width of the two-car garage.
Goodness gracious.
That's the diameter of this tree. And then we put in the volume in cubic feet at 52,508 cubic feet because we are talking about the largest tree by volume. So that's how much wood is in this sucker. But I don't really
a lot
don't know
of
how to. That's a lot of wood. I don't know how to.
Yeah, I don't know what that number means, but it's big.
It's a shitload.
It's the biggest one.
It's a shit. You could heat your house for quite a while on 52,000 cubic feet of wood, I would imagine, or build a lot of houses.
Yeah, you could.
But we're not cutting this thing down.
No.
So, little fun knowledge nugget about General Sherman. So in 2006, a branch fell. There was no one there to witness it falling, but it was.
So did it make a noise if no one was there to hear it?
I don't think it did.
Wow.
Kind of like a bear shitting in the woods. How do you know, right? Yeah. So in 2006, this branch fell, and they measured this branch.
Told me
6.5 feet in diameter and 98 feet in length. Okay, that's a lower branch on this tree. That, by standards of like an oak tree, say in Ohio, is massive.
Yeah, if I came across an oak tree that was 6.5 feet in diameter
and 100 feet tall,
and 100 feet tall, that's a big effing oak.
you'd be like, holy shit!
You'd be like,
this is a good one.
Yeah.
But what's cool is it fell, broke a fence, and it didn't just like leave a mark in the ground. The description I read, it said it left a crater in the surrounding pavement.
My goodness, it was like a meteor.
A crater in the surrounding pavement.
That's
so
crazy. I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah. So General Sherman, big ass tree out in California. So all three of these, funny enough, fall into California. So Hyperion.
They say
General
everything's
Sherman.
bigger in Texas, which,
No.
again, you lived there.
I never lived
Okay.
there. My family's from Texas, but
Okay.
I never lived there.
All right. You've been there a lot of times.
Many a times.
And so can you admit that maybe not everything's bigger in Texas?
But
Sorry,
not
Texans.
everything. Yeah, not everything's bigger in
Okay.
Texas.
Cleared that up.
Oldest tree in the world is Methuselah, is a bristlecone pine out in California. 4,600 years old. Around the time of the early Bronze Age, an emergence of the Sumerian civilization in how do you say that? Mesopotamia. I'm an idiot. Sorry.
Matt didn't take fourth grade history. He skipped it. Went on to fifth.
Well, no, I'm 42, and that's a lot of years removed from fourth grade.
No.
But anyways, regardless, this tree's old as shit.
That's freaking old because we start the AD calendar at what, 0 or whatever, and then we've moved on. We're now in, what year is it?
2025.
Okay, and so 2025. So this was like 2,500 years before that.
This has seen a thing or two.
I just that one's probably the hardest one for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah, I mean, this is one tree that's 4,600 years old. Like, in the grand scheme of things, none of us are very relevant. You know, like, I don't know.
Matt's getting deep.
It's a 4,600-year-old tree. So the only one of these three trees that you're going to be able to go see for yourself if you're ever out in California is going to be General Sherman. You can go and see the General Sherman Hyperion. The coordinates are out there, I think, on the tree on where it's located, but it's not easy to get to. There's no like clear path back to it. You know, and the reason for that is they don't want idiots going out there and messing with it. And then the Methuselah bristlecone pine out in California, the location of that, I think, is only known by a handful of universities. Like, they really want to protect this thing. So, yeah, these aren't trees that you're just going to be able to go check off the old bucket list, as cool as that would be, but for good reason. So,
unless you know somebody.
Yeah, unless you know somebody. You're like a hardcore arborist out in California. Maybe you could help do some research on them or something. I don't know. Yeah. But cool. Yeah, so a few little fun facts about trees there. Some other cool things about trees that we don't often think of is the health benefits and how they can affect us on the daily, right? Whether that be our pocketbook, whether that be health, our well-being, all of that good stuff.
Well,
so
Matt and I talk a lot about plants, and we've talked about trees, and we've really harped on the ornamental value a lot about trees. Like, we love this tree because it has pretty flowers. We love this tree because of the fall color. We love this tree because, the
It's got
cardinals
pretty bark.
like to sit in it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sure. And this is what our podcast is, and that's all very important and valuable to us. But there's a lot of things that the trees do, that trees can do for us to benefit us that we don't always think of or don't realize, right? So,
absolutely. So I don't know about you, but for me, it's like the health benefits are great, but damn, like in these times, any savings we can get in the old pocketbook's a good thing, right, people?
There you go.
Yeah.
Matt said pocketbook several times now.
So, trees, reduced heating and cooling costs. So this is a no-brainer. You plant a tree, what's the tree do? It shades your house. Shading the house obviously is going to cool it. No direct sun on the home is just, doesn't take a scientist to figure out, like, if the sun's not really hitting your house, that it's not going to be generating the heat on your house.
I mean, just think about it's a hot ass day and you just want to go through the Taco Bell drive-through and house some chalupas and drink a Mountain Dew. Where are you going to go park to house that in your car? You're going to park you're going to find the tree in the parking lot and park under it.
Yeah.
It's simple.
But with the heating costs, people say, well, how does that affect the heating costs? Because there's no leaves on the trees. Well, it would be more for people that maybe live out in the country that have a lot of harsh winter winds that hit the side of their house. Something as simple as evergreens up against the house is an insulating factor, or a windbreak of evergreens to help kind of reduce some of those harsh winter winds is going to help with your heating costs in the wintertime. And when we talk about helping this, this could be significant, like a 25 to 35% reduced cost in overall heating and cooling costs.
Absolutely.
That, of course, would have to be, your house would have to be in a forest or have a lot of shade on it to get these, but nonetheless, they can definitely help with it. So, and speaking of eating chalupas, so what's cool is when you're eating your chalupas and you're drinking your Mountain Dew Baja Blast Freeze under that tree, it can be 10 degrees cooler in and around trees and up to 25 degrees cooler than under that tree than what it would be if you were eating your chalupa on a blacktop surface. So when it's 90 degrees out and I'm going underneath this tree, 70 degrees sounds a whole lot more reasonable, right?
Oh, yeah. Trust me, you know me in heat.
Yeah, for sure. And all of this is thanks to a little thing called evapotranspiration. So much like us, we sweat to keep our bodies cool. Trees kind of do the same thing. So they evaporate water from the leaves, and that water helps cool the air around it. So not only are you getting
tree roots, they take up the water, comes up through here, and any water that can be extra is then exited
out of the leaves. Yeah, so evapotranspiration, and it helps cool the air around the tree, so you're getting the shade from the sun as well as the evapotranspiration. And it benefits all of us that are eating our chalupas under the tree. So thank you, trees, for the chalupa space.
If you're listening or watching and claiming I've never housed some chalupas in the parking lot under the tree, then you're lying to us.
And you're missing out, because damn, a chalupa sounds good right now. Some other cool facts about trees. What could we talk about here? Things that affect us on the daily. Oxygen, obviously. It's the thing that keeps us alive, people, right? Oxygen. So photosynthesis occurs in trees. Photosynthesis is the process of trees using carbon dioxide, water, and the sun's energy to produce sugars and food for the tree to live, to have these green leaves and provide us with all of these wonderful benefits.
What's the byproduct of that?
The byproduct of photosynthesis is oxygen, everything that we breathe. So, so thank a tree, hug a tree, plant a tree if you like the air that you breathe. And with that being said, carbon dioxide is the shitty stuff that we breathe that also ruins the Earth's atmosphere and is causing global climate change. And guess what the best tool is in this world for capturing carbon and storing it in the ground? A tree. So a mature tree can sequester or capture and store up to 48 or 50 pounds of CO2 a year, which is quite a bit. Maybe that number doesn't jump off because it's like 50 pounds, whatever. But when you think about like a whole forest of trees, mature trees doing this, like
that's a lot of
lbs.
Quick.
Yeah, so
of sequestered carbon.
So yeah, and these things are just carbon tanks. They take the carbon in and they store it in the roots, they store it in the ground, and then they give us the air that we breathe. So I don't know. I've read articles on Facebook and stuff of like, oh, scientists have figured out a way to create these things that will sequester carbon out of the air and store it in these tanks. And it's like, yeah, Earth did that millions of years ago with a thing called trees. So, yeah, if you want to do your part, people, plant some trees.
A thing called trees.
I mean, am I wrong though?
No, it's
Yeah.
the way you said it.
So, yeah.
He's funny today.
What are some other cool things, Tim?
Well, maybe obvious, but maybe not so obvious, is the fact that the tree's roots held into the ground can help with erosion quite a bit. So,
Those fibrous roots in the top 12 to 18
we talked
inches
about
of soil.
all these roots extending out from the tree. They help with erosion big time, and that's huge, especially in areas where there's slopes and a lot of rain and are prone to landslides. The best fix for that are trees.
Yeah, tree roots, man.
So, and then kind of on the same lines is helping with reducing stormwater runoff, pollution, and flooding. So,
Yeah.
those trees, they're thirsty. Those roots are thirsty for water. So that water's coming and they're grabbing it up. So much of that water that could potentially be, used in a flood is not. It's used by the tree.
Yeah, which is way better because what happens with floods, you have agricultural runoff. You have runoff at your house, we're all guilty of it. We all drive cars and the cars leave stuff on the ground and you fertilize your lawn or you fertilize your flower beds and all of this leads to runoff. And when it floods, this runoff can end up in our storm sewer system and eventually into our rivers and waterways, which is why we have crazy algae blooms in some of our wonderful lakes and streams that are that's a whole nother talk. Anyways,
Yeah, and plants are just good at doing this in general, not just trees. Like you think of like a wetland and the services a wetland provides and things. That's the water moves through it, and as the water goes from one end to the other, the water comes out much more cleaner and free of toxins.
Yeah, absolutely. So plants are wonderful at not only cleaning the air but cleaning our water. So that's great. Excuse me. And then noise pollution.
I'd talk about this a lot.
You talk a lot about like living near the airport and hearing the buzz of the plane.
Matt lives out here by a golf course.
I'm just sitting out here watching airplanes.
He lives in like the foothills of the country. Like he's not like country, but
bro, you should have
getting there.
You should have seen Marysville like 20 years ago. This was like redneck central. So
it was, but I mean, you've got neighbors and you've got a golf course, but where I live in Gahanna, we're very close to the Columbus Airport. It's on the east side of town, and 270, the interstate that runs right through.
I like to call it the outer belt.
The outer belt. Okay. Yeah, it is an outer belt.
It is an outer
Why
belt.
did I say interstate?
I don't know.
Gosh, I feel so dumb. Edit that out. I'm just kidding. So yeah, the outer belt and the airport do create a lot of noise, and in the wintertime, we can hear it plain as day.
Yeah.
We really can. You can hear the cars going down the freeway, and you can hear the airplanes. I'm not talking about like taking off. I'm talking about just like that hum they give off of the taxi.
Classic 737 hum.
And personally, just a nugget, doesn't bother me. I like
the hum.
I like the noise of like people doing things at night. It just, I don't know, just reminds me that like,
who doesn't like a Hummer?
There's people out there and they're doing things and they're busy. But what's interesting is in the summertime when all the trees are full of leaves, I can't hear any of that.
Yeah.
Those nights when it's like cool enough to open the windows, I can hear the cars driving down the road behind my house, but I can't hear anything
and
from
the chirp of a cricket.
Yeah.
Just not the hum of the
those drown it out too. But
yeah.
Those trees create such a noise buffer between.
Hold on. Did you say when you're at home in the summertime and your window's open? That's a funny joke right there because Tim's windows from probably like April 30th on are not open. They're closed and the AC's cranked. So
You made me snort. No, I said on one of those rare occasions.
Rare. On those rare occasions
cool
we
out.
get like a 45-degree summer night.
I do.
Yeah.
I do love it. I do love going to sleep when it's like 45 or 50 out.
And the
you
windows
open
are
those
open?
windows
Oh, yeah,
and you
dude.
get a little cold.
And you wake up and your thermostat says it's like 62 in your house.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So
Oh, man. So, yep.
yeah,
Noise
so,
pollution.
Noise pollution. The last couple fun little nuggets we're going to throw at you
We
is
got a
stuff
smart
that
ass
like,
over here today, don't
you
we?
really don't think of. And there were some studies that have been put out from several different universities, but two universities that we're going to throw out there is one study was done by Harvard that showed the increase in cardiac health in areas that were planted with street trees and had more urban trees than areas that didn't have some sort of like canopy cover.
And there's a lot that goes on with that, but at the very core of it, what it boils down to is if you live in an area that's more treed, your anxiety and stress levels are lower, therefore contributing to just better overall health and cardiac health.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot more to it than that, but that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, and that was a study that was done by Harvard. And a similar, well, not really similar, but there was a study done by Yale. So we're talking to Ivy League schools, right? Smart people are doing these studies, but there was a study that I want to say that Yale did the study in the city of Philadelphia, but they showed a decrease in crime rates in areas of these larger cities that had urban forests or urban trees compared to areas that were more open. There wasn't as much canopy cover. Basically what we learned from that is if you have trees, you're not going to have a heart attack and your neighbor's not going to kill you, right?
Yeah.
So you live longer.
Beautiful.
So
I like that.
cool, man. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, and I mean, what that study shows is that criminals don't want to be around the trees.
I don't know what it shows,
I
but
got to read that study. I like it though.
it's a very in-depth study. But yeah, Yale did it. Just shows people aren't committing crimes in general, but most notably it was like violent crimes was the biggest decrease.
So that
in
could go
violent
back
crimes.
to that could lend itself back to being
mental health.
you know, your mental health and anxiety levels and stress levels being lower, therefore, you know, less propensity to, you know, be a violent criminal.
Yeah, absolutely.
suppose.
Yeah, cool stuff, man.
Yeah.
So trees, people.
Trees
They're
are
really
good.
Cool, really cool things. Those are some fun nuggets that we wanted to drop with you all about trees.
Trees are good. Touch trees.
Touch trees, hug trees, love trees, kiss trees, whatever
Plant
you
trees.
want to do. Plant trees. Every day is Arbor Day.
Please, and if you cut down a tree, please plant 27 more trees to replace it. I think that's the new standard.
Yeah,
If you remove a tree, you must plant 27.
that's a big standard, people.
Yeah.
So,
I don't make the rules.
I mean, I cut down 2 trees in my yard. So,
That's
I can't- yeah.
54.
okay. So I got to plant 54 trees in my yard, people.
Well,
Or
you
is
could-
it just
you can
anywhere?
plant them anywhere.
Oh, I got
yeah,
that
yeah.
covered.
Doesn't have to be
I
the
got
same
that
spot.
covered.
Yeah.
I think I'm doing 18 trees.
18.
18 trees. What do you think of Scott with his Chipotle? Chipotle.
Yeah. Our
Does
boss,
anyone, who else says Chipotle like Chipotle?
Chipotle. He says it with like a little bit of a southern accent.
Hey, Matt, do you want a Chipotle chicken or do you want just a barbecue chicken? Like, who says Chipotle? Anyways, I digress. So, cool, people. That's what we have for you this week on trees. We're going to do more tree episodes because we just love it so much. I'm sure that you can tell that we do. I hope you like this video. If the video doesn't drop on YouTube for some reason and you're just hearing the audio of this, it's because the video feed was shit and I couldn't figure out how to edit it. But
and we are going to get like very high quality video stuff and really do it right. But we want to test this out a little bit.
yeah,
So
big things in the works.
if this does get on video, I'm interested to see. I feel like I stared at you a lot.
Yeah,
I
well-
forgot about the camera, and every once in a while I'd be like, "Yeah, hey,
yeah, so learning curve here. This
there's
is
definitely going to be a learning.
we've been doing the
curve.
podcast thing for over a year now, and we definitely want
and all these
to
chords.
Yeah, we're gonna get that cleaned up, but we want to
Got to get that cleaned up.
we wanted to figure this out so so we can keep bringing you guys some fun content and you can put a face with a voice. So anyways, thank you people. If you like this, hit the what do they always do on YouTube? Hit the like and subscribe button or
I don't know.
something like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, so let us know what you think, peeps.
We love you.
Love you harder plus 2.
Thank you.
We out.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.